group was going to grow like you. So here she comes. Yay! Hi! You know what it is. Nice little bedroom in the background. How are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. I told you not to overthink it. We all like to overthink it.
Of course.
Oh God, yes. So I'm gonna let's just bow our heads. This is Leanne. She's gonna tell her story. Where are you tonight, Leanne?
Right outside of Memphis, Tennessee.
Memphis, Tennessee. All right. Well, let's just bow our heads real quick and say, dear God, thank you for this night. Thank you for the group. Thank you for Leanne to allow us to hear her story, which is could be very scary to tell. But we know with you guiding her words and your hands on her shoulder, she is going to do great. And I'm just going to sit here and we're going to listen and learn. So, Leanne, you're in Memphis. Let's hear your sobriety date. I'm going to let you just start from the beginning. And you have about an hour or a little bit less, a little bit more, whatever. It's our group, so we can do whatever we want. And that's the beautiful thing about What If a Girl Needs in Recovery. I'm so glad you're here. Let's hear your sobriety date.
My sobriety is August 19th, 2022. So I had a year last week.
Yay! And what are you recovering from?
Well, I thought I was recovering from opioids.
Okay.
But I thought I was recovering from oxycodone, but I found out it was actually fentanyl.
Oh.
So very scary.
All right. Well, yes, you're lucky to be alive. Well, let's just start from the beginning, and I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to listen.
All right. Well, thank you, first of all, for letting me be of service. Yes. And I just, I give this to God, and I want Him to speak through me. So I grew up in a small town in Mississippi, and my mother was a very godly woman. She was an angel. And I never lost sight of how grateful I was to have her in my life. She was just so amazing. She led me towards God and had me involved in church and had a very close relationship with God. And she was a very godly mother, and she played a huge role in my life. Unfortunately, my father is an alcoholic. And I say this, I told my brother this the other day, because when I grew up, I never saw alcohol in the house. But I still say, even at that point, he was an alcoholic. He was restless, irritable, and discontent. He just hadn't found alcohol yet. And so he was very angry all of the time. And I grew up trying to escape that anger a lot. I would spend a few moments when I got off the bus with my mother in the kitchen, and then his truck would pull up and I would leave and go hide in my room. So that was a lot of my childhood. And it was like there were two faces, because at church we were the godly family. No one knew really of his anger, and we didn't talk about it, but it was very evident if you spent time at my home, which a lot of friends did, and then they would not spend the night. They would end up leaving. And at that time, I didn't know any different. I thought everyone's household was like mine. And so I just thought it was normal. So fast forward, I mean, if you knew me when I was 16 and I were to tell you that later I would be addicted to fentanyl, you would never have believed that. Because I was, not that going to church makes you a godly person. I don't believe that. But it played a huge part in my life. And I had a very close relationship with God. I was very involved in church. I went to church Wednesday night. I went to church Sunday morning. I went to church Sunday night. I was the children's choir director. I sang in church. I was in choir, all the things. And I met a guy in high school, and he was my high school sweetheart. had a temper similar to my father. And we ended up getting engaged. And my mom and I started planning that wedding, and it was a very sweet time. I remember she took me to find a wedding dress, and I tried on a few, and then I tried this particular one on, and she started crying. And that's what I was like, this is the one. This is the one I'm going to wear, because it meant so much to her. And during the process of that engagement, my mom started having to go to the doctor because she wasn't feeling well. And the day before Thanksgiving, we got a call from the doctor, and well, it was a few weeks prior to that, and he was supposed to give her the results of the test. And instead of doing that, he said, I would like for you to come in so we can discuss your results. I remember being downstairs and my parents being upstairs, and I was listening on the phone, and they were upstairs on the phone, and we hung up, and there was silence, and no one came down. And I remember
But all the home phones, right?
Right.
Oh, yeah.
With the rotary phone.
Right. Yeah. But you can hear other. You can, everybody can be on one. Good old days. Go ahead. Yeah. I'm sorry.
So I remember from that was the first day that I saw my father cry, and my mom just broke down, and I suddenly felt like I had to be the strong one. I was like, what are we crying for? Like, we don't even know anything yet. There's no need in, breaking down and crying. We don't even have news yet. I was trying to be the optimistic one. And the day before Thanksgiving, we did go to the doctor, and we found out she had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and it was stage 3. Doctor said she had it for, probably 3 years. And my life completely changed. For a while, it was just hard to deal with because I was the youngest of 3 children. I have 2 older brothers. One's 9 years older than me, and the other one's 13 years older than me. So by this time, I was the only child left in the house. And so I felt like every time I walked through the door, I was surrounded by death. That's what it felt like. Everyone was so depressed, and everyone was so sad, and everyone was always crying. And I felt like I couldn't. I felt like I had to be the strong person.
Right. God,
so,
I feel you.
So I went to college, and I started taking my mom to chemo twice a week, and just, you never think you're going to lose your mom, especially when you're 19, especially when you're planning your, you think your mom's always going to be there. And I remember she was really bad, and by this time it was getting close to the summer, and I was having wedding showers, bridal showers, and she was too sick to make it to some of it. Then she got put in the hospital, and I had not cried. I cried the day we found out she had cancer, but it had been about 6 or 7 months, and I had not shed a tear because I felt like I've got to hold it together because these people are falling apart. My dad tends to make everything about him, and he was doing a good job of that at that point. So
that too. I feel that, girl.
Oh, I remember being in the hospital and people coming in, and my dad would be like, "Y'all have no idea what I'm going through," and I'm like, "You're not the one hooked to a morphine drip." So I remember we were in the hospital room, and it was my oldest brother, and my mom and I were in the hospital room, and my brother asked my mother what she was thinking about, and she said, "You don't want to know?" And he said, "Yeah, I do." And she said, "I want to tell y'all what I want to be buried in." And of course, I immediately lost it. And she said, "Leanne, it's okay to cry." And I tried to hold it together because I felt like it wasn't okay to cry. I felt like if I break down,
Right.
Who else is going to be
Everybody
strong?
else. Right.
And I remember I got a little under the weather, so they told me I needed to go spend the night at my house, because her immune system was so low at that point anyway. And I remember driving home to my house, and I went in her bedroom, and I opened the closet, and the smell of her clothes hit me, and I just dropped to my knees and just cried. And I was like, why, God? Like, why her? Why her? Why this parent? I've got this parent over here.
It's right.
Why her? And I became very angry with God. I felt like it wasn't fair. And she died 2 weeks before my wedding.
Oh, baby.
And I watched her breathe her last breath. I said to her, she breathed her last breath. My sister-in-law and I did. And at that point, I canceled the wedding. I canceled my honeymoon. I canceled everything. Because we had to plan our funeral. I mean, how can I talk about a wedding?
Right.
When I've got a funeral to help plan. And then the thought of, I'm about to be alone with this man who I don't even like to have a 5-minute conversation with. The thought of it filled me with
This is your dad you're talking about? Yeah.
Scared me to death. Our pastor, let me back up a little bit. When she was sick in the hospital, she was at this point on the morphine drip, and every few minutes she was not conscious, but every few minutes she would say, I've got to finish the race. I've got to finish the race. And my sister-in-law and I kept looking at each other, and we were like, what is she talking about? She must be dreaming. We didn't think too much about it. Fast forward, after she passed away, my pastor asked for her Bible, and he tended to do this frequently when someone passed away in our church. He would like to see maybe what verses were important to her, maybe things she might have had bookmarked in her Bible that she felt, were important. So I handed my pastor her Bible, and I don't know, maybe in a few hours or the next day, I don't remember how long it was, but he came back and he said, I found a note from your mom that she left. And it basically said, I planned this wedding. She knew she wasn't going to make it. And she did not want me to cancel the wedding.
Yay!
She wanted me
to ask you, did you regret that? So you had the wedding?
Well, yes. But
go ahead, I was shut up.
So,
happy stories.
There were a lot of things at that point that were big eye openers. Didn't mean not marry this person, but it was either marry this guy or live with my dad, and kind of wasn't.
I've been there too.
So I chose what I thought was the lesser of the two evils.
Right.
So my pastor also, at the same time said, the note she left it on a page where she had highlighted a verse, and it's 2 Timothy 4:7 and 8. And it basically says, I've kept the faith, I fought the good fight, I finished the race. Now I go to heaven where God has prepared a place for me. And so we thought, maybe that's what she meant when she kept saying, I've got to finish the race. I've got to finish the race. So that was a very important part of her funeral. Kind of this central focus of her funeral. So I get married, and my father was very angry that I did. And he wanted my husband and I to him, and I came up
You're
with
breaking
everything.
up a little bit. Did you move your phone? You're breaking up a little bit.
I'm so
Okay.
sorry. Can you hear me now?
No, you're fine. I just want to make sure everybody could hear. Go ahead.
So, I got married, and he wanted my husband and I to live with him. And I got married to move in with you. So I came up with every excuse as to why that was not a very good idea. And so he said, well, I had 1 year left in college because when my mom got sick, I had to cancel like half of my classes. So it took me 5 years instead of 4 to get my degree. So I still had a year left. He said, well, you know what? You can pay for college on your own. I said, okay, I will. So I got 2 or 3 jobs and got my degree. And I was going through a phase where just the resentment towards God was just building up. You know, I was like, it's not fair. My brothers got to get married. My mom was there. My brothers got to have children. She was there for the birth of their children. She got to hold their babies. And I'm going to miss out on all of that. And it's not fair. And it became a lot of self-pity and why me, and, you know, looking at it just from that perspective of it. At that point in my life, I had not had a cigarette. Well, I might have smoked a cigarette. At that point in my life, I had not had any alcohol or any substance of any kind.
Okay.
Within 6 months of her dying, though, I'm a teacher, so a teacher friend and I started having afternoon cocktails.
Happy hour.
And that became an everyday thing. And then a lot of things happened. My grandmother died 11 months later, but long story short, on this section, I grown to where I knew how to escape things, even from a young kid, to escape my father. I would escape to my bedroom. During a time in my high school years when we were renovating our home, I escaped and lived with my grandmother for a while. So I wanted to move. I wanted to move to where no one knew me, to where no one knew my mother, because everywhere I went, somebody would say, "Are you Barbara Meredith's daughter? Let me tell you how wonderful." And I loved hearing that, and I knew all those things. But I didn't want to think about her.
Right, you kept getting reminded.
And it was like a constant in my face. I couldn't escape it. So I said, I'm going to move to another state where no one knows me, and my problems will not follow me there.
Yeah, right. I've done that too.
So I said, I will teach there, but I don't know anyone. So I'm going to get a job at a bar and meet some people. Great idea.
Right.
Great idea.
Right.
Within months, I had tried lots of things.
How old were you then? How old were you?
20-ish? 22.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just making sure I'm following along.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 22, you're starting to get out there.
Oh, yeah. And when I started, I went for it, like, big time.
Making up for lost time.
Made up for lost time. So I was trying to teach, and I say trying because I was doing a pretty pitiful job of it that year, and working at the bar, and then hanging out at the bar after the bar closed, and then getting 2 or 3 hours of sleep, and then trying to go be a teacher during the day. Horrible. But eventually I couldn't keep up with both, and I made way more money at the bar than I did teaching. So I resigned that year, and gave up what I went to school for, and said, I'll just work at the bar. So I met my my now husband, during this time. And, like I said, we partied and we tried things. And at some point, and I don't even exactly remember at what point pain pills came into my life, but it did at some point. And I fully believe in, and you tell me whether you agree with it or not, it seems like from the year that I've been in recovery, everyone has their vice. Some people it might have been alcohol that did it for alcohol. I say this carefully. Alcohol wasn't my problem. Now,
that was my gateway.
If I were to have alcohol now, like my next drink would be a Percocet. So I'm very well aware of that. So I'm sober off the thing. But
yeah, alcohol leads to the side dishes for sure for me. Yes.
Yeah. So and I say that, but yet I get my Facebook memories, and there are lots of nights where I posted a glass of wine in my maybe a little more than I thought I did.
Right. That you're trying to let yourself remember. Yeah. We do that too.
So at some point, pain pills entered the picture, and the moment they did, it was like, this is how I've wanted to feel my whole life. I'd always had major anxiety as a child. I remember people, and to this day, people say, "You're shaking. Are you okay?" And I say, I have bad anxiety, and it's due to my childhood. And so, but when I took pills, it was escape that worked for a little while. You know, it works for a little while until it doesn't. So that went on for years of pain pills, and I got pregnant. And when I did get pregnant, everything stopped. It's amazing. I think God just is amazing that way, because I've heard lots of people say that even when in the middle of their addiction, that when they got pregnant, their bodies just almost rejected whatever substance they were on. And I didn't touch it the whole time. Then I had a C-section, and guess what I got put back on?
I remember that. I had one too, yeah. So of course I was an addict then. So anyway, go ahead. Yeah, I was an addict when I had both of my kids. That's terrible. They were both planned. I don't know how I was planning shit when I was an addict, but that's just my story. So they turned out all right. They're healthy and beautiful. I wasn't doing drugs then, but I definitely, as soon as I had them, I was ready to continue on my drug addiction path. So yeah, unfortunately. But go ahead.
So when I had the C-section with my first child, they gave me pain pills again, and I remembered, I like these, and took them. And then when I ran out, we got more, but we didn't get it from a doctor, obviously. 3 months later, I had another child, C-section. So once again, I put on pain pills, and from that point on, I don't think there was much dry time for a long time. Years and years went by of me teaching, because in my head, like, I'm the best teacher when I'm on pain pills.
Oh yeah,
I can get all this stuff done.
Makes you pretty. Makes you pretty. Makes you smart.
I can get all this housework done. I can sit here and edit and grade essays, all pump it out. Delusional.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
At some point, I think it was around COVID, it became very hard to get them. People stopped the doctor. And
about that. Yeah.
So at that point, I got on Suboxone. I got on and was on Suboxone for probably about a year. And then I used my father as an excuse to relapse, I would say. I didn't even know it was a relapse at that point, but he made me so angry and made my family so, because he's an alcoholic, so that means he's ungrateful, and he's very selfish. And so all of those attributes of an alcoholic, he was exhibiting, and I was angry. So I said, you know what? And I contacted the person, and they said, you know what? I don't have any of those, but I do have this, and it's 30 milligram oxycodone. I was like, okay, I'll do that.
I've done one of those before, yeah.
And from that point, when I tell you, it was like the train derailed so quick, so quick. And I didn't understand why. I was like, I've been maintaining.
Yeah,
I've been
right.
maintaining.
What am I doing wrong?
Right. I've not been losing my brain, and my life was not a complete wreck.
We don't know.
Yeah. And so I just didn't understand it. And unfortunately, I started taking more than we were even making. So I could no longer afford this habit, because now I'm needing way more than I'd ever needed before. And I didn't understand why. Like, when I was on the real stuff, like, I maintained for a very long time at an amount and didn't need more than that. But from this point on, it was like every day I needed twice as much. It was just horrible. And it got to a point to where I was getting like payday loans just to get my fix, and then payday would come, and payday would come, and then there would be no payday, because all that money would have to go back to the people, and it became a vicious cycle. And my husband, I pretty much handled the finances, and I say that loosely. At the there was a lot of, why isn't the debit card working? Oh, well, the bank's updating. I think they're doing an update tonight, so just check back tomorrow.
The gift is the gab, right? You tell
anything. So at this point, I had dug my hole so deep that I didn't know a way out. I didn't see a way out. I knew that for some reason, and if you had hooked me up to a lie detector, I would have. And that every day I said, I am not going to take any more pills today. I would have passed the lie detector test because I meant it. But then 3 or 4 hours later, I'll quit tomorrow. Let me just. I've got this due. I need it for this. I've got to go grocery shopping, so I need it for that. Oh, the kids need me to help them with a replica of whatever at the last minute. So I did that. So, and everything was dependent on whether I had it or not. Whether it did get cooked became dependent on whether I had it or not. So it got to a point where I just knew I had just destroyed everything, and I did not see a way out. And this was in May, and unfortunately, the drugs and our addiction tends to tell us things that we unfortunately believe at times. And I said, there's no way out. The best way is for me to just be gone, and for them to collect life insurance. That's the best. That's the only way out. I cannot get out of this. So
I felt that before too.
You're just so broken. Yes. And so I was in this bedroom, very bed, and I was writing my children letters saying goodbye. And my youngest son walked in the bedroom, and he saw his name on the paper, and he looked at me, and I was crying. And he said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm fine. And he became concerned, and I remember a couple minutes later, I saw him with his phone. I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm texting," and I grabbed his phone. I said, "I'm fine," because he was about to tell somebody, I'm worried about Mom. So I wrote the letters. I wrote one to both of my sons, and I wrote one to my husband, and I took them out and put them in the mailbox.
I'm going to show you my bacon packet. Thick bacon, Dijon mustard, brown sugar.
It is a remote.
Indeed.
Give it to me. Hurry up. Give me that. Okay. Thank you. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're good. So I put them in the mailbox, and I told my kids I was going to the store, and I left. I left, and I started leaving my neighborhood, and it was almost like an out-of-body experience. I was just crying does not even begin to describe what I was feeling, because I was so, like, I didn't want to leave my kids, but I didn't know any other way out. I could not find a way out of it. And I got halfway down the road, and I started thinking about how my son would probably blame himself because he tried to stop it from happening. And I had waited until I knew my husband was home. So I said, I did a U-turn, and I raced back home. I grabbed them out of the mailbox. I said, I'll wait till tomorrow. Next thing I knew, my brother, my middle brother, the next morning shows up at my door. My oldest brother said, something's going, you need to go see one. And he basically rescued me out of that situation. And at that time in May, he said, Leanne, you have a problem with you? Oh,
Right.
I'm fine. I'm fine. Yeah. And in my head, I said, I'm going to get back on Suboxone, and I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop. And I meant it. In my head, I meant it. So you would think that would be the end of it, right? No, because it went on for another 3 months, and here comes August, and I'm in the exact same situation I was in May. Just as bad. What had taken me a year, the mess that had taken me a year to create, I had recreated it in 3 months and was in the exact same situation again. And once again, my husband calls me, why isn't the bank account, my debit card got denied? I don't know. And I knew it was coming. It was like the walls were closed. I was just waiting. Every time the phone rang, I was like this, okay, every time I saw him on the phone, his name on the phone, I was like, okay, he's figured it out.
Right.
So that day he did figure it out. And I remember he was on hold with the bank, and I was just sitting there, and I was like,
Here we go. Here we go.
And then he walked in the bedroom, and he was basically crying. And he said, you're killing yourself, Leanne. You need help. And that was the first time that I said, I need help. I knew out of control. I knew I was powerless over it. I knew there was no way. I had proven to myself that I could not overcome it on my own. And I needed help. I needed big time help to overcome this. And all the while, I'd waited 24 hours, and I'd taken a Suboxone and immediately started throwing up just profusely. So sick. And little did I know I was in precipitated withdrawal because I was taking Suboxone too early, because I didn't know I was on fentanyl. Because when you're on like oxycodone, you wait 24 hours to take Suboxone. If you're on fentanyl, you have to wait 30 to 48 hours. 72 hours. I'm sorry. You have to wait at least 72 hours before you can take it. So that's why I was so sick. And so it was like withdrawal times 100 was what I was going through. And my husband made a call. Thankfully, we have great insurance, and I was getting ready to pack my bag. I remember my brother and my sister-in-law came back down, so embarrassed, because here he is again having to come down from 3 or 4 hour drive to come take care of me. And figure out how to get me help. And at that point, I knew I needed help, but God was not part of the plan. I was so angry at God. Not only had I lost my mom and lost my grandmother, my oldest son was diagnosed as autistic. So I was like, screw you. Like,
Right. Blow after blow, right? Yeah.
Blow after blow. Like, if this what I get from having a relationship with you, then I don't want it.
Right. Right. I feel you.
And I mean, I was so far gone at that point. Like, I remember telling my brother, I think I'm Jewish. I think I'm. And he was like, who are you? So.
That's funny, girl.
So,
you meant it. You meant it.
I didn't want it hard. And I remember my sister, my sweet sister, she said, before your mom died, she said, Robin, I want you to look out for Leanne.
Okay.
Because I think she knew that I was not going to handle it well.
Right.
And I remember being in withdrawal, laying on my bed, and my sister-in-law saying, Leanne, I think God's been chasing after you. And I was just like, oh, shut up. Let me go.
Yes.
Like, no part.
You're like, shut up, lady.
Like,
I can see you on the bed going, oh, my God. Can you leave already?
Like, don't talk to me about God right now, please.
Right.
So I get on a plane and I go to California, and they are asking me what all I've taken. The only thing I've taken is oxycodone. That's the only thing you're going to find in my system. That's the only thing. Next day they come back and they said, well, we're going to show you something. And I was like, what? And fentanyl all through the roof. I had been taking fentanyl for over a year. And a lot of it. And I say, since I've left rehab, 5 friends that I came close to, 5 of them relapsed and took one.
I know.
One. And gone.
Terrible. I know. I mean,
So I think when you already have opioids in your system and then you get on it, you're more, I think you're more in danger when you get clean and then relapse on this.
Right. Because it's a progressive disease. Right. Yeah.
So
my Carrie relapsed November 2019. They found her in her pool. She lived in that house for 20 years. They found her dead in her pool. Fentanyl in her system. Yeah.
It's just ripping so many families apart. Yeah. Even my son's high school, on the day of graduation, they found 3 kids dead in the parking lot. Same pills I was taking, same exact pills I was taking. And it's in everything.
Yeah.
So lucky, so lucky. So I of course, when they show me that, I'm like, my heart stops.
You went to rehab in California?
I did.
Okay.
And it was a good thing because I had no way to escape. I had nowhere to because there were points in the process that I wanted to. Because even though I was medically treated, it was still rough. Like, for the first, my friends there kept checking to see if I was breathing because it was just so hard. It was so hard.
I've witnessed that. A New Hope. Yes. It's horrible.
And so, of course, like, I was like, whoa, this, I had no idea I was taking it.
Right, because if it's making you feel so bad when you're coming down, what's it really doing to your body, when you're up?
That's what, at that point, by the time I went, I wasn't even getting high anymore.
Exactly. That's what we're talking about. Yeah.
So it was a miserable place to be. I don't ever want to go back there. But I remember in rehab, I said, okay, all right, so AA must be the answer. And that's what I was being told there. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, And then, the first step is to realize that, you're powerless over it. And here comes the higher power talk. And I'm like,
oh, that's me. I bombarded. Nose dive.
Like,
Lord, here we go. Yeah.
No. And at that point in time, my husband and I were still talking, and then, but him having to take care of the bills that I had not paid made him obviously more angry. And at some point while I was there, he told my case manager, she's wasting her time talking to me. It's over. And that had been the crutch that I had been holding to. And at that moment, I had nothing. Like, at least I still had my kids, but that was my moment of desperation came at that moment. And I just sobbed and sobbed. And I just was like, oh, like, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. And at the time I was resentful. Because I was like, how dare you? I'm here doing all this work. How dare you?
Pour me another drink. Yeah.
But now obviously I look back and I know that's what needed to happen.
That's right.
It need to be alone, so that only person I could depend on was him. And so I remember that day just being so hard. And there was this angel of a lady who was one of our house mothers, and we had just finished a meeting, and I was crying my eyes out. And she said, Leanne, can I just pray with you, pray over you? And at that point I was like, yes, like what? And I need prayer. Somebody pray for me, please. And she prayed for me, and then she finished. She looked at me, Laura, and she said, Leanne, you just got to fight the good fight. You got to finish the race, because God has a plan for you. And I looked, I said, what did you just say?
Yeah.
And she goes, and she said it again. I said, you have no idea the significance of the words that just came out of your mouth, because I've not heard those words in over 20 years, and it was my mom's words. And I knew that was God speaking to me. And so at that moment, I said, okay,
here I am, right?
A long time. And look where it's gotten me. Like, it's gotten me in the worst situation in my life. And how selfish am I? Like, my mother would want to come back to earth. She's in heaven. Exactly. That's a gift. Like, I'm just being selfish. Her back.
Right.
It's all about me and what I don't have, and God's timing is perfect, and He knows why she was taken from me when she did, and at that point I just surrendered and I gave everything. I just said, whatever I have to do, whatever I have to do, I will do it. And at that point in life, I thought my marriage was over, but a peace came over me, and I was like, I'm going to be okay. And I remember we had this exercise that we had to do at rehab, and in the exercise, they wanted you to pick someone to put your intent on. And I kept, first time I did it, obviously my mom, and I could feel her presence, and it was like, there's nothing you could do that would make me not proud of you. There's nothing you could do that could make me not love you. And this time, I was like, well, should I do it on my husband or should I do it on God? And I was kind of going back and forth because part of me was still angry at my husband. And I said, I'm going to do it on him anyway. So I
tried.
Focus on him. And it was like God said to me, get your eyes off him. I got him. Focus on me. Just put and I will take care of him.
Right. right.
And
Oh,
our relationship and marriage is better than it's ever been.
yay.
Next one is the name.
So great.
I spent way too many years without having them, without being the spiritual leader that I needed to be for them. And so when I came home, you know, for a little while, I went to church and then I kind of slacked off for a minute. And then it was like God was saying, "You're running out of time, Leanne. You're running out of time." And so I was like, "No, I got to commit to this." And for everything that you've done for me, the least I can do, least I can do, is give them to you. Like, that's the least I can do. Because if you had seen me a year and 3 weeks ago today, I mean, my family, they were contemplating what they were going to do if I was unable to get clean. Like, they were planning next steps. Like, what are we going to do if she cannot get clean? And I know I look back, and had it not been for fentanyl, I probably would have been given the gift of desperation, because it got so bad.
Where did you get the fentanyl from? Who were you getting that from? Just a random dealer?
Random dealer.
Wow.
And they did, you know, I don't know.
They might not have even known that it was fentanyl.
Probably not. Who knows?
That's what's fucked up.
I know.
Yeah, that's what's really fucked up, because it's trickling down, and, you know, they're giving it to you, a school teacher, for God's sakes. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, the drug dealers, they don't have any conscience. Thank God that God never did let his hands up off of you, because, and your mom was there the whole time. You know, think about how happy she is for you.
And my son is getting baptized on her birthday.
Yay!
So
do you Go ahead.
I'm just so grateful to God, and I'm grateful to the program of recovery that I stick with and that I don't let up on. And I wake up every day, and the first thing I do is I just think about everything I'm grateful for.
Right.
I'm grateful that I can go to work and not need something to be able to go to work. I'm
thinking about getting high while the kids are at recess. I did that.
Yeah.
I was a mother's. I did that shit. It's so weird, girl. I always learn stuff in these testimonial Sundays. That's why I love doing this. But everything that you've said, I went through in my own way. You know, my mom died in 2000, you know, and I know she's so happy right now. And there was little things, little God winks, like they say, like at the rehab when that lady said that to you, that was a God wink, right?
Exactly.
So, you know, it's just, it goes to show you, if you listen and you're willing, because once she said that, your willingness was all in.
Yeah, there was no denying that was his voice.
Right.
And he knew he would have to use those specific words to get through this thick skull in my head. Because I'm stubborn.
Weird how just little bitty things will just mark on you, imprint, you know, on you. Wow, what an awesome story. So let me ask you, Leanne, is there anything that